Hi, I'm Liz from D'Addario Strings, and I am here today with Sam Finlay of David Gage Strings, and they're also the producers of the Realist pickup. Today, what are we doing here?
Today, Liz, we are changing the strings on this cello.
This cello.
This cello right here.
Okay.
Well, first you want to lay the cello on its back. That's important because you don't want to have a chance where the sound post moves around. On the lower strings, on the cello and the bass especially, when you remove the tension from the top, that can allow the sound post to move around, and if it's on its back, it really can't move around as much.
So which string are you going to change first?
I'm going to start, in this case, just doing one at a time. I'm going to start with the C string. So first we're going to reduce the tension on the peg all the way to the point where it's unwound and you can pull the string out. And we're going to follow that all the way down to the end, pulling it out of the tailpiece. So I'm going to set this string to the side and get a new string.
How do you know which string to pull up?
Well, D'Addario has this excellent color coding system, so you always know which string you're working with. In this case, violet will indicate that it's a C string, red is always a G string. And so we'll take this violet color, the C string, matching the same D'Addario Kaplan string that we took off this cello. And we're going to put this string into the tailpiece. Just threading the ball end through this fine tuner and making sure that it's seated in there correctly, not off to one side. If your cello doesn't have a fine tuner on it, you can just thread the string up to the bottom of the tailpiece and that'll work just fine.
Alrighty.
What's important is that it gets a good firm hold there. Sometimes a fine tuner can grip in a strange way, so you want to make sure that it's free in there and just looks the same as the other strings. And then we're going to prepare the surface that touches the string.
Okay.
In this case, we're going to use just graphite from a pencil. So we put a little bit of graphite on the bridge and also here on the nut.
And what does that do?
That keeps the bridge from binding the string.
Okay.
If the string is bound by the bridge, then the bridge can move, and that can cause it to warp or just change shape, and that's no good. And then we're going to thread the string through the hole in the peg. If your peg has more than one hole, I would just pick the one that's closest to the center of the peg box.
Okay.
In this case, this peg only has the one hole. And then turning the peg towards the scroll, I'm going to try to wind these up as uniformly as I can. I would keep as little friction on this friction peg as you can while you wind things up. Now we have tension. I want to make sure that, take one more chance to check that the ball end is firmly in the tailpiece, that the string is in the slot on the bridge, and then I'm going to just finish winding this string up. And as it gets into pitch, I'm going to push it a little bit more into the peg box so that that friction peg holds it into place.
So when you let go, it's not going to completely spiral right out.
Right, and if you do that, if you put it in and you realize that it's moving a little bit, you can just tune it back up and then push a little bit farther in. And then we'll repeat that process for all the other strings.
So now that we have changed all 4 strings, do you have any do's and don'ts to leave us with?
I do. My first tip would be to make sure that you match the size of your string to the size of your instrument. If you don't know what size cello you play, then you should find out from your luthier or your local cello shop. They can measure it for you. What I'm saying here is that you don't want to put a 3/4 set of strings on a half-size cello. It just doesn't work the same way. The notes will be, the strings just won't function correctly.
Okay. And after I've been playing on these strings for a while, how do I know when it's time to change them again?
You look for a couple of things. Discoloration is a good first step. If they look a different color than they were when you bought them, then it's probably time for a new set. If they don't sound as good as they did when you first bought them, then it's probably time for a new set. For me, I'm always sensitive to the places around, like the nut and the bridge top. If the strings look like they're coming unbound or they look rough and ragged there, then it's probably time to get a new set. As a beginner, you can change your strings, once or twice, 4 times a year. But as you start to play more and more, you're going to have to change them more than that.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for showing us this today, Sam.
It's been my pleasure.
Alrighty.